welcome to Comic Talks, where comics is always the top of our discussion. My name is Brandon.
And I'm Mary.
And today we continue on with our 52 book club. As always, this is the event that takes place in between Infinite Crisis and 1 year later. We have already covered weeks 1 through 9. So if you want to listen to those, go tune in. We have a whole playlist from week 1 to week 9 that you can follow chronologically and get up to this point. So we'll wait for a second. Okay, you guys go watch them. Good. Let's continue on with week 10, huh? So this week starts off with Black Adam. Now, Black Adam, of course, last time we see him, he takes on the Green Lanterns. He takes on, what was it? Pretty much tells them, I am setting up a coalition. My job is going to destroy, pretty much rule with an iron fist in some ways. Now, we start off with Black Adam, of course, as he's gathered representatives of other countries to have them deliver a message to their leaders. So the point I'm going to bring up, I'm going to cite this pretty quickly off what he states to them and what it means. So he states off this to the heroes or the metahumans that have come as a representative. Each one of you is a representative for your great country, and I ask each one of you to deliver a message to your leaders. Many have joined our coalition, but many more have been resistant. Some of you have been resistant to allow others in. But what will change as of now? I ask you to forget political battles between one another. Already China and Russia have agreed to create a clean slate with myself as the moderator. Soon we will have the strength to, and of course, it's interrupted. Now, who's it interrupted by? Of course, none other than Adrianna Tomaz. She has escaped her room and, of course, making a scene where soldiers have had come out and tackle her down. Now, of course, they're apologizing to Black Adam. Like, hey, we're sorry. We didn't mean to interrupt you. And he asks what is wrong with the girl. And, of course, Adrianna Tomaz coming out just like she is. I'm Adrianna Tomaz, and you are nothing but a terrorist, and spits in his face. And of course, not wise. And it's just like, what are you going to do to her? Like, you're not going to do nothing to her. Now,
you've already shown her more kindness than like anyone else in this story. We know you have a soft spot for her already. We know you're not going to do anything.
That's why I went, when I looked at that, and just go, why? So
it's posturing.
Yeah. Now, not the last time we're going to see him in this issue, but we will turn to another character that Mary has talked about in the past and brought up that he will play a prominent role in this series, but not as what you know him as.
Clark Kent comes back, and I love every second of it. I love Clark. He's character of all time. I adore him. And he's getting fired. And he's getting fired because without Superman's powers, my dude's slacking. Or he seems like he's slacking in comparison to what he's previously been able to produce. I had some very seriously worded notes, and now I'm just making jokes, but that's fine. So, according to, of course, our lovely editor, he says, and you blew it. The Daily Star broke the story, not the planet, the star.
Yes.
It had insult to injury. Starlight claimed to naming the mysterious hero we saw terrorizing Booster Gold last time. And they've named him Supernova. We even see that Clark has been cutting himself while shaving. Because he says, again, if you don't know how to use a keyboard, Kent, tell me you at least know how to use a razor. To which Clark says, kind of. So Clark is getting fired, but he sees out the window as he's contemplating the fact that he's just been sacked, Supernova. And let it never be said that Clark doesn't listen or pay attention to Lois, because he mimics her very nicely by throwing himself out of the window in what I keep wanting to call him J. Jonah Jameson, and that is Spider-Man.
I was thinking the same thing too.
He's acting very much like him at the moment. That's why I'm like,
It's
it's
Perry
not the guy.
White.
It's
So
not him. It's not
Perry,
him. It's Perry White. I have to keep reminding myself. Um, but Perry is like, Great Caesar's ghost, Kent, what are you doing? Kent, wait, it's not worth killing yourself. And then Clark just face plants out of this window, only to be caught by Supernova. And then, upon being asked if he's okay, he says, I'm fine, Clark Kent, Daily Planet, let's talk. And he secures the first interview with Supernova.
I just love to do
And then,
Supernova's eyes, where you just see him like twitching, like what? What did he just do?
yeah, it's very clearly an eye twitch, especially because there's no way he doesn't know who Clark Kent is. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And I believe it's still this issue, um, where Clark has theories around Supernova. And then that brings us back to Black Adam.
Yes, so we turn back to Black Adam as Adrianna Tomaz is thrown back in her room by the soldiers, and pretty much they're sitting there kind of like taunting her, telling her off, and Black Adam tells them pretty much, stop, give us a minute. So this is where his soft spot starts to come in. Now, he pretty much tells her, of course, leave us. He tries to extend a hand to her, but of course, knowing Adrianna Tomaz, she doesn't want no help and gets up herself. And pretty much Black Adam finally asks, why are you running? Now, she goes, I'm not a prisoner. And she goes, prisoner or not prisoner, you are a refugee. You were kidnapped by Intergang, pretty much he states to her, and offered as a gift to me. I killed your captors and asked my advisors to take you back home to Cairo. They said your family was slaughtered when you were taken away, and your brother was sold into slavery. You had no one. That is why I offered you refuge. And he goes, I apologize for killing your captors and denying you your revenge. And she goes, you apologize for that? And Black Adam finally says, you're free to go. And to go, at any, and then of course, couldn't even get timeout without her marching out. But she turns back to him and says, you're not going to change the world. Now, mind you, she explains why she says this. But those words alone is what captures it. It just grabs you like, hold up. This is just not going to be a typical person that just tells or just speaks her mind. No, this is going to be the person that tells Adam off. And she says, these last several weeks, I've seen and heard about the crusade of yours. It borders on psychotic. And she goes, you're gathering a coalition of other countries that will adopt your freedom of power treaty, effectively enforcing lethal action against metahuman criminals. Now, Adam explains that some of them have the power to destroy a country, and the fact that with that inclination that they must be dismantled. But she goes, you're targeting America. You're hoping to concentrate a power base to rival theirs. And he goes, I'm just simply spreading a method of justice that will help protect the people and ensure that no one will again lose their family as you have yours. And she goes, she pretty much states something true. You're going to plunge this world into war. And she goes, what happened to you? What happened that you take it out on the whole world? Doesn't even answer. He just tells her, you are free to go. And she goes, your problem is that you don't listen to anyone but yourself. And he goes, and your problem is that you're naive. And of course, they throw their little jabs, but Adrianna comes on top. In fact, she calls him arrogant. He calls her disrespectful. She says, alone. And it ends the conversation. Now, we go back to Clark Kent as he gets yelled at by his wife.
He gets a newspaper slammed in his face and says, whatever possessed you to throw yourself out a window to get someone's attention? And he says, Lois, you wrote the playbook on this. um, and what we do see is Lois sort of talking about what they're calling post-crisis trauma, which is the PTSD that essentially the entire world is struggling with in the wake of Infinite Crisis. Which is more than understandable. And it's the kind of thing that we saw at the very, very beginning of the 52 event. In that first issue where we're seeing the effects that this crisis had on the whole world. Um, and we also see Lois having to remind Clark of just basic human things, such as pots being hot, because that's never something he's had to worry about before. And we learn that there's no Wonder Woman, there's no Flash. Clark only knows that they're safe, and that Batman and Robin are traveling the globe to rebuild their skills. And then Clark says that he believes that Supernova, I think he's on the level, which is Clark's way of saying he's pretty sure that Supernova has been in the hero business for a while. He has an air of experience to him. Would you have thought that quickly to secure the crime scene or protect bystanders? And that's why I think that the eye twitch that we saw earlier is so kind of important, because within the hero community, it's pretty well known that Clark is Superman. They know that. So imagine being a young hero and then Superman launches himself out of a window for you to catch him. I mean,
Way to reveal your identity, sir.
yeah. Um, and so while Clark and Lois are going, "Oh, this is a nice young man," it's good to see someone stepping up to the plate in Superman's absence. Booster Gold is losing it.
Guy's not having it. This guy is going
Haynes,
insane.
he's moved from a penthouse condo down to a 3-room rental with an alley view, and he's very upset about this. And he says, "This Supernova jerk is stealing my limelight and eroding my endorsement deals." And of course, we know that Skids is not 21st century history is changing. So Skids can't really be of help with him to him here. And Booster says, "Stop confusing me with logic. There is nothing in those 25th century databanks about Supernova's identity."
Yeah.
And then the two of them sort of go out to try to find out more about Supernova. However, based on what we've seen of Booster, I'm not quite sure he's going to be able to accomplish that.
No. No. Never. At this point, Booster could just sit there and twist and spin all I care, because at this point he's never going to find out or never get the answers he wants to. But yeah, so we go to one more set of people. And I know Mary loves to talk about these two, especially Magnus.
They're so fun. So we see Will Magnus and Dr. Morrow, who are, as we know, they're friends. And they're talking. Now, last time we saw Dr. Morrow, everything had been removed from his cell. We now see that he's had the chance to put things back. Must be good behavior or something. Apparently, he's no longer turning watches into bombs. Good for him. Love to see it. But Morrow says, "You're Will Magnus. You create a band of beloved synthetic superheroes. Just because you went a little crazy one time doesn't mean they take you off the list. We all go a little crazy sometimes. Of course, some of us get locked up for it." So again, they're still talking about their little mad scientist club where members have started going missing. And for the reasons that we saw, Morrow had technology installed into his cell to spy on him last time. And Morrow keeps talking about how we marched to a different drum, you and I. And Will is kind of Will doesn't pick up on a lot of social cues ever, but he's picked up on this one, probably because it's so heavy-handed, and says, "What are you trying to say?" To which Morrow says, "Just thank you, Will. Thank you for being my friend." And Will's like, "You're talking like we're never going to see each other again. Is there something you haven't told me?" And then this gets weird because Amara was like, "Walls have ears, Will. Now show me what you found." Like, why are you talking about this openly if the walls have ears? But whatever. Comic book logic, I guess. And they hold up from what was found inside a broken glass jar from the lab of Dr. Savannah. A little chrysalis.
Yeah, buddy.
A cocoon says, "Now, what do you suppose hatched out of there?" And it's clear that they both know what it is.
You
Um,
want to tell fans who it's going to be?
it's gonna be Mr. Mind.
Now, for anybody who doesn't know or doesn't know much about the comics, he does make an appearance in the first Shazam movie, but they're not doing nothing with him. That's what's making me mad about him. He is the little worm that comes into Dr. Savannah's prison cell and has his little speaker box talking, but don't let size fool you. This guy is probably one of Shazam's most notorious villains, up there with the likes of Dr. Savannah and Black Adam for a reason. Um,
I love Mr. Mind.
now we go to the history of the DCU. Now we're coming to the last two parts of this. Now next week will be the last part of the history of the DCU, and then we turn to individual stories. Um, so Mary, talk a little bit about what happens in the history of the DCU this week.
So now we're talking about the things that happen after Identity Crisis. We're talking really about the legacy of Identity Crisis. Um, which is, of course, the secret society of villains consisting of the Calculator, Deathstroke, Black Adam, Talia al Ghul, and Dr. Psycho, who formed up under the leadership of Lex Luthor as a front against Earth's heroes. Rogue War, highly recommend reading that. It's very fun. Mia Dearden becoming Speedy. It's my girl. And of course, the destruction of the Fortress of Solitude. Um, and then, of course, as the fortress was restored, Hal Jordan is no longer Spectre, but now Spectre's without a human host. So Spectre's trying to destroy all earthly magic, who then has to be stopped by Captain Marvel. All sorts of things, and then of course there's Batman's failsafe.
Yeah. Brother Eye himself.
Which, of course, doesn't end
Nope. Nope.
well.
No. Still, to me, one of my most hated about Batman to this very day. But it happened. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Not a story I like, but but never have. But yeah, there of course it's kind of like how we talked about a few weeks ago. We talked about parallax coming into play and how different things that this is just your filler points, but it does lead to something interesting, which is the fact that it is going to lead to the events of Infinite Crisis. Now, before we get to that too, I forgot to mention that we do get to see Red Hood in this little thing with the hood. Now,
Yes. Oh, I do. We did see him for just a second. You're right.
yeah, so we do when they're talking about, but wait, Brother Eye's activity didn't end with Lord's death because, mind you, Maxwell Lord does play a big part in this little series because Maxwell Lord not only causes a lot of this problems with Brother Eye, but it also is the death or Ted Korg in this issue. Now, this is where we say, where you hear people bashing Booster a little bit, that this is not what Ted Korg would want. This is how he dies. He doesn't die in Infinite Crisis. It dies before this happens. And Wonder Woman does kill him. Now, this is why Wonder Woman, we find out, is not in the picture right now. She took that next step and killed a villain to the point where now she is gone. We don't know where yet, but she's gone now. Now, of course, we see, like we say, Batman does reveal the hood, and Gotham, the Red Hood, plagued and already tortured Batman, eventually revealing himself to be Jason Todd. One of my favorite heroes, or one of my favorite anti-heroes of all time.
One of my favorites as well.
Yeah, it's a character that everybody hated. If everybody does not know this story, I would love to talk about it really quickly. Jason Todd was the second Robin. Now, people hated him. And the reason is when you really put his backstory to Dick Grayson's backstory, it's kind of similar. So it doesn't mix well. Let's put
Well, it
this.
depends on which backstory of his you're talking about.
Well,
Because there's the first one where it's identical.
yes, that's what I'm meaning more. It's an identical
Yeah.
thing. But let's put it this way. Fans hated him so much that they decided to put a poll out to see if they would kill him or if they'd make him live. And the thing was, they killed him. And that is the famous story of Death in the Family. Now, what I didn't like about them showing this first is, doesn't he come back after the events of Infinite Crisis?
Yes.
That's the only thing I did not like about this, because it's like you haven't even discussed Infinite Crisis yet.
Yeah,
And
because
Jason's
it's Superboy Prime punching the universe that
yeah,
brings Jason back.
punch reality really hard, really, really hard, to the point where everything changes. And I'll admit, I love when they retconned this story, because I did not like that story whatsoever. That Superboy Prime is the reason he's alive. No, I like him just being put in a Lazarus pit and moving forward.
See, I know a little bit too much about human decomp for me to like the Lazarus Pit story because it just doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
me. I like the absurdity of Superboy Prime punching the universe. I think it's fun.
I like that part, but I don't like what comes after. Like Talia and him have a relationship. I did not like that. It's just one of
Yeah.
those stories, but I didn't mind the Lazarus pit, because I was like, okay, I kind of see what you're doing there. And because it just pits why Ra's al Ghul, even though he hates Batman, he loves him at the same time, because he wants him to be that heir to him. So it's kind of like, I kind of see it both ways. Now, not only that, but we get to see that this is going to end with them introducing Infinite Crisis. Now, that's why we brought up the Jason Todd story, because the fact being that this happens after the events of Infinite Crisis, not before Infinite Crisis. So
Anyway, it's just another example of DC not knowing their own timeline, let's be honest.
got a point there. Now, this is where we're going to end this week's issue. Like we said, if you want to listen to our previous episodes, previous weeks, we have a playlist on our YouTube channel. Go listen week 1 to week 9 to this point to get up to this point. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell notification so you never miss an episode. You can listen to Mary and I as we talk about comic books with our partner Will and our other teammates, as we give you great comic book content and anime content on our normal podcast, Comic Talkers. You can find that on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Comic Talkers to get all the latest updates on the podcast. And without further ado, my name is Brandon.
And I'm Mary.
And may comics always be the top of your discussion.